guys, Shama here. I'm here with Rohit Bhargava, who's author of the latest Non-Obvious, and he's also a publisher with Idea Press. That's your company, Rohit.
That's right.
We just thought we'd have a conversation. We're both authors. You guys know my book, Momentum. We thought we'd just talk about marketing books. And we have a lot of authors here who watch the show, or people who want to be authors. And so, man, marketing books these days, that is a tall drink of water.
Yeah, it is.
So Rohit, tell us everything you know. No, I'm kidding. So,
in 3 minutes or less.
Yes, tell us everything. So, what do you think has changed? Maybe we start with that, in terms of how the last 20, 30 years and how the publishing world's changed.
Well, the obvious way that it's changed, I think, is that there's a lot more books, and a lot more people can write those books. And the previous gatekeepers we used to have on publishing so that only a few people could get published are gone. And if you look at the number of registrations of ISBN numbers over the last 30 years, the chart literally goes like this. In the last 5 years, it's just been like off the chart in a totally new way. So there's a lot more books.
Yeah. I think it's because it's easier than ever to be an author?
Easier than ever. It's one button publishing in some cases.
Yeah.
You can make an ebook with almost zero.
Low barrier to entry now.
Low barrier to entry, yeah. So all of those things. All of those things, yeah. But I think the bigger way that it's shifted more recently, and the reason why I started a publishing company in the first place, is because there's such amazing talent in the publishing industry that is now available on a freelance basis. And so some of the top editors, top writers, top freelancers, top designers, people who were previously working at some of these big publishing houses are now freelancers and available to work on books individually. And so one of the things I thought about when I was starting a publishing company was not what people usually think is, oh, you started it because you wanted to be able to save money. But actually I wanted better quality. That was my number one reason for starting Idea Press. And I figured if I could get these amazing editors and all of these people working on Idea Press projects, then we would be able to produce amazing books. And so that was my number one motivation, and I think that's possible now. And it would have been very difficult 5 years ago.
To do that. But it seems like there's two pieces to it now, right? We write the books and then marketing the books and getting the books out there, because it's not like you'll write it and they will appear, right? It's like any other product or service. You really kind of have to find your audience, if you will.
Yeah, and I think that for a long time, book marketing has been approached very much like film marketing. And film marketing is all about opening weekend. And in a film, it's like you're only in screens for a limited amount of time.
Right.
That's basically how people are going to see it, unless you wait for getting the DVD out
or
Netflix or streaming, which are all more recent.
Right.
And so it's all about that opening weekend. Driving enough revenue so that the theaters keep you in the stores, in the theaters.
Sure.
And bookstores and books were marketed very similarly for a long time. But I think when it comes to business books, which is what we focus on, the market for that is completely different. So if you want to write a bestseller and run a bestseller campaign, yes, you have to sell a lot of copies within the first week. I mean, that is the way it's measured. But Amazon measures sales hourly. So if you want to be an Amazon bestseller, you have to sell a lot of books in an hour. So literally.
And
so
it changes hour to hour.
Yeah, it changes hour to hour, right? Which is why a lot of books can be number one in a certain category because they went out and had 100 people buy it in 1 hour, and that'll propel you to be number one in a category. And so there's a lot of gaming of that system as well.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the business of book publishing, a lot of business books, for example, are purchased in bulk for employees of an organization.
Yeah.
A lot of business books are used as marketing collateral for individuals who are building speaking careers.
Funny enough, both my books, Zen and Momentum, biggest orders were organizations who wanted to buy it for their employees or organizations that wanted to buy it for their members. So
right.
I would
So
agree.
So if you think about the average publishing deal, an author will go and do all the work to sell thousands of copies in bulk for a business author, who has a profile. Usually that's how it works, and then they'll make 15% of those sales, or some minuscule number.
Sure.
And at Idea Press, we really flip that around, and we say, look, we're going to help you produce an amazing book, but then you're going to keep most of the revenue from the book. And that's what I would have wanted as an author. And so that's what I created. I basically created the thing I wanted, and then I opened it up for other authors.
So what do you think about in terms of marketing books these days? You've kind of your top 3 things or things that you just noticed that you think help marketing books.
Yeah. I think that the books that tend to be the most successful are the ones that have a community that the author has built behind it. So it's people who are so invested in the author that, like, as soon as the author releases something new, it's like, oh, now we're going to totally support you.
Really before the book is ever born.
Yeah.
You know, and it's funny because I think in that way I would totally agree is that rather than creating demand for a book, I almost feel like it's about fulfilling demand for a book. Like when I write a book, when I wrote Momentum, I felt like it was all the things that people were asking me, and I just didn't have a resource to say, here you go. Like I did that with Zen. You know, I wrote that with people had questions about social media, and it was like, well, I can't point them to a resource. There's nothing that says this right now.
Yeah, right.
Now, of course, there is.
It was out of necessity. You wrote it. Yeah.
So it's about kind of just like you would start a business. Is there market demand? And now I will create a product or service to meet market demand.
That's sort of the intent of the publishing company. Yeah,
writing the book with.
Well, and it was and you know, the thing that took time with the publishing company wasn't necessarily the model or thinking that through. Mm-hmm. The thing that took time was like the details and logistics of being like a real publishing company.
Sure, yeah.
Because what I didn't want to do was become like a vanity publisher where it was kind of like some dude wants 20,000 of his own books, and so he just needs somebody to print them. But it's a crap book. Mm-hmm. Like that's not what I wanted to create. Right. So what took time was like getting foreign rights representation, getting to full distribution into bookstores.
Yeah, congratulations.
All of those. Thank you.
Great.
So like now I can go to an author who has an audience, somebody who I would consider a peer of mine, right? Somebody who's released books before. I only half jokingly said my target audience for this new publishing company was the frustrated second-time best-selling author, which there are many.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So that's really cool. I mean, you've obviously fulfilled a need and started a business in kind of what you saw to be missing in the marketplace. And what do you think the future holds for authors? Is like that number just keeps going up, right?
Yeah.
Do you think at some point it caps out to like, do you think that we will plateau in how many books are out there, or do you think that number will keep growing, but publishers, rather than being gatekeepers, will be more sort of facilitators for the community you've already built and that you want to cater to?
Well, if you think about the publishing business, the great publishers were always gatekeepers in a good way. Like the great publishers, when they signed on and published a book, you kind of knew it was going to be a good book.
Right.
They didn't publish crap books.
Depended on, yeah.
And now the problem is that there's, of the big 6 publishers, half of them publish a lot of crap books. So now they're no better than anybody off the street who creates they're just churning stuff out that an author just pays them basically to print for them. And the top half has become thinner. So I do think there's a huge value in a good publishing company publishing a book. And so I've actually gone with some of my authors and said, look, if you get a deal with one of these 3 guys and they give you an advance, you should go for that because they're going to do a great job for you. But those are so few and far between, and there's a whole second layer of authors who have brilliant books, who have amazing insights, who have an audience, but who aren't going to get that type of deal because it just doesn't fit that publisher's model to do, because they can only do a certain number of books.
And still a lot falls on the author too, right? So I feel
Everything.
like, to drive the book, I mean, honestly, I like my publisher. I like worked with Ben Bella Books now for both my books, but I think one of the reasons I like them is because I always understood that it's my job to move the book. It's not technically the publisher's job it's to facilitate, it's to help, be an advocate, but at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to move the book, and a lot of it begins with writing a good book.
Yeah, writing a good book and then having the right factors in place. And I think Ben Bella is a good example because they're sort of in between.
Yeah.
And so they take the best of the kind of free independent side and they mix it with some of the kind of traditional publishing gravitas that you would want in terms of like distribution and things like that. And I think that what ends up happening is for an author, ultimately you should know that you're going to do all the work, but you want a publisher that's not going to actively stand in your way,
of that too.
Right? Yeah. Or like just not fulfill, right? So I've had situations where like I have sold a ton of books. I needed them to be in a certain place at a certain time, and a publisher doesn't even fulfill that.
Oh, yeah,
so like you're in a situation now where you did all the work, you made all the sales, they're making most of the money, and they can't even deliver, which is the only thing you need them for, and they don't even do that, right?
So you're right. It is about kind of finding that perfect marriage, right, of publisher and author. And it's such an interesting world I think we live in now as authors and moving books and connecting with communities. But I guess the best is yet to come. So We'll see what the future holds for publishing. And congratulations on all your success with Idea Press and with your new book, Non Obvious. Check it out, guys.